entire set. What about endurance training? So endurance training does increase testosterone in the short term. So when doing very short durations or 2 to 5 minutes of 90 to 100% VO2 max, which is kind of the maximum amount of oxygen your body can use during an exercise.
There's so many ways to increase one's testosterone, whether it be through certain foods, exercise, or certain chemicals and pills. I'm not here to focus on chemicals and pills today. That's not my thing. I want to look at more natural ways that we can improve our testosterone, mainly through exercise, right? So I want to take a look at a video, give a reaction, and see what input that the doctor here has to say. I'm always open to suggestions myself. I'm always trying to learn new ways, new methods, and improve on my own workout and my own testosterone as well. You know, we see these commercials. I think one commercial I see a lot is that new Genix commercial, and at the end they're like, and she'll love it too. That's kind of funny, but I don't know. I mean, I forget. I don't know if that's natural or not. I know they have certain things that give you energy. It may not be exactly testosterone, but I have an averse nature to that to taking pills. Basically, I like to hear about natural things, whether it be foods or exercise. And I'm gonna say that it's better for all of us that we go a natural route instead of the shortcuts. I know a lot of us like shortcuts. I'm not a fan of shortcuts, but even me, I'm tempted to take a shortcut sometimes, but not in this case, right? I'm bad about adverse effects. I've never had anything unnatural, not to my knowledge anyway. But I just thought that this is a good video to look at natural ways to boost your testosterone. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up. And I want to give a shout out again to my dedicated 2 listeners. I appreciate you guys. We're like 300, all 3 of us. Anyway, I'm going to start in the video and offer my opinion as she goes on.
How intense you need to make your workouts, what kind of exercise should you be doing, and what is the order of exercise you should do, whether it's resistance training or endurance training.
If you heard me laugh, you know what? Never mind. No comment.
Training. Lastly, we'll talk about the lasting effects on testosterone, as well as what factors can limit your ability to produce more testosterone naturally. So how is testosterone made? Well, 95% of the male body's testosterone is produced in the testicles.
Now, I heard that testosterone, that's where it's produced. I didn't know 95%. Did she say 95? I had no idea. Well, anywhere in the 90%. I didn't know it was that much, right? That's interesting. I also heard that the best way to produce more testosterone is doing squats, and that's close to the testicles. I don't know if that has something to do with the muscles near the testicles, but I thought that was interesting. Yeah, so if that's the case, the other gender has testosterone. Anyway, I guess that's for another video. I'm gonna continue with this.
And this is done by specialized cells called Leydig cells. The signals to stimulate these cells starts from the brain in the hypothalamus, which releases a hormone called gonadotropin releasing hormone.
I'm laughing because I know we've heard the gonad jokes or terminology before. It's just funny how. Anyway, let me continue.
This hormone causes the pituitary, another part of the brain, to release LH. LH sends signals to the Leydig cells of the testicles to then produce testosterone. Then testosterone goes to specific cells around the body, including the muscle. Then the testosterone goes inside the cells and binds to an androgen receptor. The binding of the testosterone and the androgen receptor then causes a cascade of gene production, which then goes on to make proteins and building blocks for your body. How does exercise actually lead to increases in serum testosterone? Well, when you exercise, there's a release of both catabolic and anabolic hormones. That means hormones that break you down and grow you up. One of these hormones includes testosterone. This increase in testosterone also upregulates the expression of the androgen receptor and subsequently causes increases in protein synthesis. And the theory is that after exercise, your testosterone goes way up. This increases the half-life of the androgen receptor mRNA, which is the gene product of the androgen receptor, and increases its half-life. So this makes it more likely that you're going to have hypertrophic adaptation, or essentially muscle growth. But it's important to note that there appears to be a threshold of metabolic demand or volume of work that you need to achieve to.
This is where it gets complicated with the terminology. I guess, for some of us, I get it that the testosterone increases after a workout. I'm curious how long that lasts. Anyway, I think she gets into that. I was always curious in how long that lasts. I heard it doesn't last as long, and that again, that depends on the person, right? Age, stage in life, diet, that type of thing. I don't know. I've seen. Then again, I don't think there's a textbook result for everyone. I think there is a ballpark, and there's like outliers, and then somewhere in the ballpark, people have where they stand or sit in regards to how long it lasts. But just something I was thinking about. I'm sure she'll go into that.
Actually get the testosterone boost. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about the intensity of the workout, the number of sets and repetitions, the order of the workout, as well as the amount of resting period you should have. So let's start with resistance training. Resistance training has been studied, and specifically I use these terms so you'll understand them. Intensity describes the difficulty of the exercise, and it's typically based on the amount of weight that you lift. A repetition maximum is the maximum amount of weight you can lift for a defined number of movements. And volume of work, which I said is the key marker for testosterone boosting, includes the number of sets, the repetitions, and the intensity of the work. So let me give you an example. For increasing intensity, if you did 5 reps of something with 100 pounds, and you did then 5 reps with 150 pounds, you have then increased the intensity. But if you went from 5 reps of 100 pounds to 10 reps with 100 pounds, you've increased the volume. In the testosterone studies looking...
And this is the thing. When I work out, I've been doing this for a long time, I increase the resistance, and I guess decrease the volume in a sense. I do heavier weight, less reps each time, right? The first set I'll do, let's say you put on 200 pounds, right? In the first set, maybe you do like 5 to 7 reps. And then next set you put on like maybe 210 pounds, and then you do like maybe another 4 to 5 reps. The reps are reduced as the weight goes up. That's the way I learned how to do it. But this is, I guess there's different ways. I guess she's just using an example, but it's just something that crossed my mind.
At what types of exercise actually boost testosterone, there have been 2 kind of bigger studies that have come out. One study looked at 3 to 5 repetitions of 3 lower body exercises at 100% of 6 RM, or repetition maxes. So
yeah, I did hear that the leg exercises are better for increasing testosterone, especially squats. I did hear that. I've heard that before.
Meaning you're maxing your weight capacity and doing 6 repetitions 3 times of each of the 3 exercises. The other study looked at 5 sets of 10 repetitions of 10 repetition maximums. So not focusing on the numbers I just gave you, but the thing to realize is that you need to be using your 100% repetition maximum. So you want to take the heaviest weight that you can to do the entire set. What about endurance training? So endurance training does increase testosterone in the short term. So when doing very short durations, or 2 to 5 minutes of 90 to 100% VO2 max, which is kind of the maximum amount of oxygen your body can use during an exercise. Usually in order to find out your VO2 max, you'll either get a stress test at your doctor's office, or you'll go to an exercise medicine sort of clinic where they...
I was always curious about what I guess it's VO2 max was, but I never thought to even put enough effort to go to the doctor to figure this out, or maybe a health specialist or wherever they do that. I don't know. I've just been curious, but I guess I haven't been curious enough to put forth that energy.
Can measure that for you. So in endurance exercise specifically, you will often see an initial increase in testosterone, but later, because of the stress of the aerobic exercise, your body starts releasing cortisol, and cortisol then inhibits testosterone production, which causes a decline in the testosterone. Particularly in high elite endurance athletes, you'll find that they may actually have lower testosterone levels. This is because the high endurance athlete creates what's called reactive oxygen species in response to stress. These reactive oxygen species can actually blunt the pathway in the brain that tells the testicles to make more testosterone. So when you're comparing, should I do resistance training or should I do endurance training? Ideally, resistance training is going to be the one thing that boosts your testosterone the most. There also have been some...
Yeah, I've heard that too. It's about resistance training. Because I do notice that especially long distance runners tend to be a bit less firm. I mean, it's good for your heart. I mean, I guess they have strong hearts. I guess if you want all around physical fitness, maybe it's a combination. I think she's going to mention the high intensity as well as weights, because I guess mostly long distance runners tend to not be as firm, even though they have strong hearts to run very far. But as far as muscle density and strength, it's not there as much due to the distance exercise as opposed to the resistance exercise. But again, it's what they do, right? So they're not really focused on strength and high testosterone and that type of thing.
Small studies which have looked at high intensity interval training that do show improvements in testosterone levels after performing high intensity interval training. However, looking at the data, a lot of the data says the testosterone boosts only for an hour or a short period of time after the exercise. Some studies have shown improvements in testosterone as long as 48 hours after the exercise. And
that's what I would like to know, what dictates the 48 hours versus the 1 hour. I guess she's gonna go into that. I don't know. I haven't watched the entire video. I'm going off the top of my head here, so this is really interesting to me. I mean, it may be a lot of other variables, but I'm just curious as to what the difference is if she mentions it. Hopefully.
It's important to realize that doing one-time resistance training is not going to boost your testosterone levels for a prolonged period of time.
Of course.
What about the number of sets and repetitions? Well, as I mentioned before, the volume of work is what matters the most. So you can modify the numbers of sets and the numbers of repetitions as long as you keep the intensity high and you can get the same amount of volume of work. What about training to failure? Well, one study actually looked at this. They essentially followed 40 men and they divided them up into 3 groups. One that exercised to failure, meaning they worked out until they could not lift anything anymore.
I've rarely done that. Rarely. Sometimes I do. It depends on my mood. But I guess everyone's body is different. Let me let her finish.
The others exercised not to failure, and the last group didn't exercise at all. What they found was that those who did not go to failure had greater gains when doing lower extremity exercise in muscular power output, whereas those who went to failure had larger gains in the number of repetitions they could do with the bench press. But what about their testosterone? They found that the group that didn't go to failure had lower cortisol concentrations, meaning they had less stress in their body and had higher testosterone levels.
Well, that's good news for me, because I was like, I rarely go to failure. I guess that's again the type of athlete you're trying to become. Now it makes me curious about certain athletes and their workout regimen and their trainers. I've seen a variety. It just makes me think more about their outcomes now.
So going to failure may not be the best thing for your testosterone level. All right, so we said resistance exercises are the best, but what kind of resistance exercises? Well, as we mentioned before, you want high intensity, but you also want to use large muscle groups. So even if you do a high intensity small muscle mass, it's not going to boost your testosterone. For example,
I have heard that before. Before she continues, I have heard the compound exercises are best for increasing testosterone. I heard the compound exercises are best in general with free weights.
A jump squat, which is using your lower extremities and your core, are going to have a higher testosterone increase than those who are getting the bench press. Also, things like squats and Olympic lifts can actually produce a higher increase in testosterone. What about using free weights versus machine? When they looked at this, free weights actually increased plasma testosterone levels more than those who had machine weights. The reason for this is likely because when you're using free weights, you're also using other muscle bodies like your core to help stabilize. Whereas with machines, they really try to isolate the muscle that you're exercising with. What about resting?
Yeah, I think isolating muscles would seem like it would be more for bodybuilders, but I don't know. I'm a big proponent of free weights. As I guess, if you're one of those that want to sculpt your body a certain way, the machines help too. But as far as testosterone, free weights are the way to go.
Periods. How long of a rest should you take? So in a study looking at intensity, number of sets and repetitions, as well as resting time, what they found was that moderate intensity, higher volume, and shorter resting times actually had a higher increase in plasma testosterone. So using a shorter rest period, in this case using 60 seconds versus 90 seconds, led to better improvements in total testosterone levels.
I think that's where I need to improve because sometimes my resting periods, sometimes you get caught up in daydreaming or your phone. I guess it's best with a partner. With a partner, my resting periods are shorter. And sometimes when you're by yourself, I work out a lot by myself. No spotter, free weights, no spotter, and those resting periods, man. I don't know. I need improvement in that area. I can say that.
So if you're going to do both resistance and endurance training, what goes first? Well, based on the hormone physiology, you want to use, as we mentioned before, large muscle groups, and you want to be able to have that elevated testosterone level throughout your entire workout. So the best bet for having a greater boost and prolonged boost in testosterone is to start with the resistance training first, using the large muscle mass, followed by the endurance training. What about changes in the basal testosterone?
That's ironic for me. I do some endurance training toward the end, or maybe it's just a cool down. Maybe it's not exactly endurance training toward the end of the workout or at the very beginning. But again, it's just a warm up or cool down. So I don't know if that counts sorry. I'm having a brain fog. The distance training, not the distance training, but you know what I mean. Endurance. Anyway, let me let her talk.
Testosterone level. That means your resting testosterone level when you're not exercising. Does doing resistance training actually impact that level? Well, for now, we're not exactly sure. While we've seen that continued bouts of exercise, particularly in one study where they looked at 3 different bouts of exercise, they persistently saw increases in total testosterone after each of the bouts of exercise. So we know that the resistance training does improve testosterone level even when done repeatedly. If you're exercising regularly, regardless of the type or intensity of the exercise, it does not seem to have a lasting effect on the basal testosterone level. However, we do see some small studies, particularly in obese individuals and older patients, where we do see an increase in basal testosterone levels. The theory for this, for at least the overweight and obese individuals, is that they're also losing weight. So they're losing waist circumference as well as fat loss, which can also boost testosterone levels. So if you
But with that, I'm assuming their testosterone level are so low to where the only way is up. I don't know. Just a guess. I'm just guessing. I could be wrong. I'm sure if more people come and look, except for the 3 of us, they will leave an opinion about that.
want to see the continued testosterone boost, you got to keep doing the resistance training. That's why you never skip leg day. All right. So
That's funny. I do leg day a lot. I do more legs than upper body, but the funny part is, we see them, the cartoon character body types, they seem to skip leg days, which is funny. And if you notice, if you do legs, you'll be stronger than those guys on the average.
What if you're doing all the right things, you've been doing all the right exercise, but you're still struggling? Well, there are a couple factors that make it more difficult to boost a testosterone response. The first one is obesity. Obesity can cause endothelial dysfunction as well as vasodilation of the blood vessels. What that means is the blood vessels are not as good at carrying blood to and from the testicles. This can then make it more difficult for them to respond. It does seem that they do boost their testosterone, but it may not be as high of a boost as someone who is leaner in weight. The second thing is age. So men's ability to produce testosterone peaks at about age 40. After that, it tends to decline about...
That's pretty good. I thought it was that's pretty good. It peaks at 40. Okay. That's good news, eh? Some of us have a lot to look forward to.
1 to 3%.
I want to do a little dance because of that. Don't laugh. Well, you can laugh. Anyway, I'm going to let her talk again.
Per year over the course of the lifetime. And this is just like any other part of your body. The cells in the testicle called the Leydig cells have less of a response because they've gotten older to the stimulation produced by the brain or the pituitary. So older men still, similar to obese men, still mount a response, but usually it's less of a response than younger men. But the
I've seen, I mean, maybe, I don't know, because some of these guys, if you've traveled, if you've been to a more, I guess, want to say developing country or a less industrialized country, you see a lot of older men like have six packs and they still have muscles and they're working the field. And these guys, I'm talking in their 70s and some even in their 80s. I don't know if it's the food, the diet, as well as a lifestyle. I'm not saying, I don't know what kind of testosterone they're producing, but their bodies look like they're still like 30s and 20s, and their face might look like they're like 80 or 100. If you travel, if you know what I'm talking about. You guys who have been to different type of countries, you know what I'm talking about. I've even seen this in industrialized nations, but it's more like an older guy who kind of grew up more rural or from a time where I guess they say the older men have more testosterone than younger men these days. So that may be something to think about now. Cause I remember I saw a guy, he looked like he was in his 60s, but the guy was like really jacked. Like he had his body like it was like 28. He had six pack. So I don't know. It seems like now they were saying the younger guys don't have as much testosterone. I think it's our food and our environment. That's for another video. I'm gonna finish this. There's not much time left, I guess, for her here.
Bottom line I want you to take away from this video is regardless of your age, any other conditions you have, your weight, there is sufficient evidence that doing resistance exercises with large muscle mass using moderate to high intensity with short resting periods and high volume can produce increases in testosterone level. So right after
Yeah, she summed it up pretty nicely there. It was a good summary she gave at the end about the high intensity and high resistance and resting periods and things like that. I probably missed something there. But let me know what you think. I think it was pretty informative for me. It fills in some blanks. It always fills in some blanks when I take advice in regards to nutrition and health and exercise. I always try to keep an open mind. And I thought this was a good explanation, a good scientific or medical view of things. And feel free to let me know what you think. Please like and subscribe. There's only 3 of us here. We're dedicated. We're fighting a good fight, and I appreciate you two guys. Anyway, thanks again for your time. I appreciate it.